Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all participants joining us today. And a big warm welcome to all of you to our webinar on mentoring the female leaders in sport fall. In celebration of International Women's Day, today's webinar is held in partnership with Made to Play and will focus on how to develop and support strong women mentors. It is now time to start, but before we go any further, I would like to share you some housekeeping rules. We advise you that today's webinar is recorded, so please turn off your camera if you do not wish to appear on the screen. All of your microphones have been muted by default to ensure a smooth running of the webinar. So if you wish to intervene with a comment or a question, we encourage you to write in the chat throughout the session and the speakers respond during the Q&A. And finally, can everyone please update their Zoom name to their first name, surname, and organization so that we know who is present today. Well, this is enough housekeeping, and it is now time to officially kick off the webinar. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce TAFISA Vice President for Americas, Ms. Catherine Forde, who is joining us all the way from Trinidad and Tobago and will give a few words of welcome on behalf of TAFISA Board of Directors. Catherine, it is a great pleasure to have you with us, and now the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Stacey, and good morning to the participants. Good afternoon and good evening. It is my pleasure this morning to welcome you all here today for our webinar on mentoring the female leaders in sport for all, hosted in partnership with TAFISA and Made to Play. I feel privileged to be able to offer words of welcome on behalf of the TAFISA Board of Directors. We are here this morning, today, this afternoon, in celebration and support of International Women's Day, which was celebrated officially yesterday on March 8th. Under the theme, Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. Without gender equality today, indeed a sustainable and equal future remains beyond our reach. Gender equality is a fundamental human right, and its advancement represents a key priority and a key objective for TAFISA. This webinar, with the aim of developing and supporting strong women mentors and leaders across the global sports for all movement, is part of TAFISA's wider strategy to increase and develop opportunities for girls and women to undertake sport and physical activity, as well as highlight the necessity of equal representation at all levels. TAFISA, through its Mission 2030, which is our answer to the SDGs, strives for a safe, equal future for all girls and women, free from inequities, violence, abuse, and discrimination. As you can see, we are joined today by very special guests representing the importance of collaboration and partnership to achieve our collective goals. This webinar welcomes two leading experts, Executive Director and co-founder of Say Yes, Michelle Potter, and TAFISA's very own global expert and special advisor for Oceania, Wendy Gillett, along with 4 mentees and mentors from the European Commission co-founded Female Leaders of Tomorrow program. I would like to thank Michelle, Wendy, and all the panelists on behalf of the TAFISA Board of Directors for their own and their organization's close and dedicated partnership, for which TAFISA is very grateful. I would also like to extend special thanks to Nike for its ongoing support to TAFISA since 2013 and highlight the tremendous work they have been doing out in the field, acting as both opinion leaders, and change makers, and supporting girls and women worldwide. This workshop received over 170 registrations from over 60 countries, with interest coming from all corners of the globe and organizations such as UNESCO, the IOC, IPC, NOCs, the IFs, the international federations, various ministries, various universities and NGOs, showing a desire to be part of today's discussion. TAFISA would like to thank all the participants who have joined us today. And before I conclude, I wish to share with you a formal statement from our president, Professor Dr. Judo Chang, which states as follows: women's leadership represents a driving force for change today. TAFISA acknowledges the enormous positive contribution of female leaders in undertaking current global challenges in their various societies. Our mission 2030 is to create a better world through sport for all. And for this future to become a reality, we need to develop, support, and empower the new generation of female leaders in sport for all. As we strive to set gender equity as a priority on the agenda of the global sport for all movement, we recognize that TAFISA cannot achieve this alone. So together, we must move forward to make progress towards the implementation of gender equity policies, targeting gender balance at all levels, in leadership, in management, administration, coaching, and officiating in sports governing bodies. Together, we must create a safe, welcoming, and inspiring environment that ensures and values the full involvement of women in every aspect of sport and physical activity. Together, we call for a strong network and continuous dialogue between leaders and stakeholders working in the field of gender equality and gender equity to pave the way for future generations of female leaders in sport for all. And finally, together, we are stronger in our quest for a better world through sport for all. I thank you and welcome to a very inspiring day. Thank you, Stacey.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for this very inspiring opening of the webinar. And I would like to also extend a warm welcome to TAFISA Secretary General, Mr. Wolfgang Baumann, who is in attendance today with us. TAFISA is very delighted that we are joined today by fantastic speakers from all over the world who have insights, experience, and knowledge to share on mentoring the female leaders in sport for all. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to our keynote speaker of today, Ms. Michelle Porter, representing Say Yes. Michelle is an executive director and a co-founder of Say Yes Mentoring. She graduated from Roehampton University in education. After working in the music industry for 12 years, she was trained and qualified with the UK Football Association as a coach. She went on to coach in London and New York for 3 years before becoming a full-time student in 2004, where she had studied for a degree in education with additional subjects in human rights and philosophy. Michelle has undertaken many roles across her career where she demonstrated her strong skills in nonprofit organization leadership, strategy, analytical skills, mentoring, and partnership building. In 2008, she received the Forde Guild Award for her dissertation on sports on children in care in South Africa and the UK. Since 2008, she has lived and worked in Cape Town leading Say Yes Mentoring. Special thanks to Michelle for joining us today, and now the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Stacey. Hello, everybody. At SAYS Mentoring, our mission is to inspire and inform leaders of social change through mentoring. I'm going to tell you how we do that, but first I'm going to tell you how SAYS came to be. In 2005, I came to South Africa for the first time to coach football to street children. And while I was here, I was asked by one of the staff at the organization I was volunteering at if I would help to arrange a trip to England for the boys as an incentive to get them off the street and into the children's home and into school. I was very happy to help. I went back to London, and with my friend, we raised the money for this trip. And a year later, 16 boys who I had met in 2005, scratching through bins for food, came to England, and they got off the plane at Gatwick Airport in matching tracksuits, looking very proud of themselves, and they had an amazing 2 weeks in London. They went to see the West Ham first team train. They went to a match at Stamford Bridge, and they went on the pitch at halftime to collect a check on behalf of the Homeless World Cup, and they had the crowd roaring and cheering for them. They spent a day at a school where I had been a PE teacher, and they were treated like kings. They went to the theatre. They had an incredible time. It was really an incredible adventure for them. And then they went back to South Africa, and I went back to my studies in London. And I heard very soon after they'd returned from this fabulously glamorous trip to London that these young men were going back onto the street and that they weren't staying in the children's home. And it was a real moment for me to stop and look at myself in the mirror and see what I had been part of, which was nothing more than a nice warm feeling for some people who'd been involved, those people who wrote us the big checks for the trip, and anyone else that had been in support of it, because actually this was not a sustainable project. There was no long-term goal in mind for these young men. And they came off the street, they started to go to school every day, they changed their habits, they attended regular workshops up until they went on the trip to England. When they came back, when there was no program in place for them, they got back into their old habits. And so my friend and I decided that we were going to set up a charity to support these young men who were staying in children's homes until the age of 18, who I subsequently learned had to leave when they were 18 years old. So we set up this charity, and we tried to find partners in South Africa who would want to establish programs for them, for young people leaving the care system at the age of 18, and we would fund it from the UK. But we weren't successful. So I relocated to South Africa at the end of 2008. And the intention was to find out how to support young people who are in children's homes when they have to leave when they're 18 years old. And so I spent the first year and a half volunteering at children's homes, talking to young men and young women who were living on the streets, who had been raised in children's homes, who had to leave when they were 18, talking to young people who were still living in the homes to find out what their dreams and aspirations were, talking to the social workers, the youth care workers that they worked with, and also reading about what other countries were doing to support young people leaving care at the age of 18. And when I came across one-to-one mentoring, that was the light bulb moment for me. Because all of us, regardless of where we are in our lives, regardless of our age, our economic status, our range of networks, whoever we are, we need someone. We need people who are going to believe us and trust us. We need someone that we can believe and we can trust, and we all need consistency in relationships. So when I came across one-to-one mentoring, I decided that's what we were going to launch this one-to-one mentoring program with these care leaders and see if it worked out. And in 2010, we launched it on a very small scale. And the key to the success, or the key to these mentoring relationships with these young people, was for us to partner with organizations on the ground. So we started by partnering with children's homes, and they would then introduce the young people to us, and we would invite them to join the program. It couldn't be compulsory. If mentoring is compulsory for a young person, it's really not going to work. I really don't think you can force anybody who's going through adolescence to sign up for a mentorship program. Whenever I'm speaking about adolescence, I say, I think it's the most difficult time in anybody's life. They are expected to behave like adults 1 minute, and yet they're treated like children the next. So much is going on for them in their lives, hormones, life, their expectations of life and people around them. Everything is changing for them. And so it's a really confusing and difficult time. So if they want to have a mentor, what a fantastic opportunity for them and for the mentor. So what we do at Say Yes is we establish partnerships first. Now, I've told you we started with children's homes. We don't only work with children's homes now. We've been doing this for 14 years, and we absolutely love what we do. We don't do anything else. There's so much need here in South Africa, as there is all over the world. And there've been temptations to add on, oh, should we also add some tutoring? Should we also add this? Or no, leave that to the experts. We decided that we were going to become the experts in mentoring and just focus on mentoring and nothing else. So we stay on top of the literature. We know what's important. We know how regularly people have to meet. We know we have to monitor the relationships to make sure that they're meeting. And if they don't, we need to step in and provide some interventions and find out what's going on and fix it. Where we start is we establish a partnership either with a children's home, a high school, a sport for development organization, grassroots community-based organizations. Even with corporates, we've just established a new partnership with Nike. So we have the partnership first. And through the partnership, very often then we are referred to the mentees. And in some instances, if it's a corporate, then they will provide the mentors for the program. Up until a couple of years ago, we were doing what we call in-person mentoring. We now have switched to remote. We never would have done that. It was not on our plan, not in our plan, but we've had to do it, and we're finding great success with it. We're finding our mentees are telling us getting much more organized because they know they've only got an hour, and they've only got an hour of data on their phone, and they want to get the most out of this, so they are getting the most out of it. So we start with the partnerships, and then through those partnerships, we get the referrals either to the mentees or to the mentors. We provide training to the mentees. They absolutely have to know what is expected of them. They can't be expected to know how to manage this new relationship. So they get training. They know exactly what is expected of them. The partners, depending on who the partner is, if it's a corporate, we're not giving them any training. But if it's a community-based organization, if it's a sport for development organization, if it's a high school, we give them training because we have a key contact within that organization that we have regular contact with as and when we need it. If we've got any issues with the match, as we call it, then we can contact that person. If we need any assistance with scheduling or arranging workshops or accessing local resources, then we have a person that we can turn to. Mentors, now the process for them is extremely rigorous. It has to be. If we're taking responsibility for matching two people together, we've got to make sure that we are rigorous in our screening and our training process. So many people want to do good. A lot of people want to volunteer, and they kind of think this might be a nice idea. But the way that we frame mentoring is, it's not please come and volunteer, we're so grateful. We don't frame it that way at all. We frame it as this is an opportunity for social change. If you want to affect social change, you can do that with us. We will help you do good better. And we're going to be here to support you along the way. So the mentors have to fill out a very lengthy application form. It takes about an hour and a half. They will submit that. We will review it. We will then invite them for an interview, which is almost like a mini training session. And we'll go through any concerns, any red flags we might have picked up on their application. And a red flag might be something like that the prospective mentor has got an issue, a problem with teenage and pregnancy out of wedlock or homosexuality, those kind of things. We need to make sure that we address any concerns like that, because we need people to be comfortable with any and all of these things that affect the lives of the young people we're working with. So we'll go through any red flags. We will really rigorously go through the life of the mentor. Are you a single parent with 3 children working full time? Then really, have you got time for this mentoring opportunity? If somebody, for example, is in the first year of sobriety, we'll ask them to come back in a year's time because they need to be focusing on that. This is an opportunity for them to impact social change, to affect social change, and it's work. The commitment for the mentor and the mentee to meet is 1 hour a week. There are other things that each mentor and the mentee will often commit to doing, like researching opportunities. So it takes a little more time than that hour a week. We want to make sure that the mentors that sign up and join our program have got the time. They need to be over the age of 26. They need to be independent, knowledgeable, and experienced. They have to have a very secure relationship style. They can't get upset if the adolescent they're dealing with is rude to them. We're going to expect that to happen because adolescents are going through adolescence and it's hell, and we know that. So we do everything that we can to prepare the mentor and the mentee for the process that they're about to step into, and to allow them, either one of them, to step away once they've been through the training with us if they realize it's not the right thing for them. The role of the mentor in our program is guidance, advocacy, and support, and we teach them how to do that. Active listening is essential. When a young person is stuck and struggling with a relationship, with a situation that they're going through, we train the mentors in perspective sharing. Again, adolescents are not going to want to be told what to do. They don't want advice. They need perspective sharing. And we know from the science and from the evidence, that's the best way to shift anyone's perspective, is to share your own perspective. So we teach all of this in the mentor training. Our mentor training is 14 hours long, and it's broken down into a number of modules. If the mentor gets through the training, hasn't withdrawn, and we haven't rejected them or asked them to come back in a year's time, then they're going through matching. What the matching looks like is, now that we're remote, is we give the mentees the opportunity to interview a few mentors. We match same gender, same self-identified gender with same self-identified gender. And so the mentees who've been through the training are then given the opportunity to interview. We help them plan for that interview. We sit in on the interview so that they feel supported, they're not intimidated by the process. And then they get to choose their mentor at the end of it. If they don't want to do that and they opt to allow us to do that for them, to choose the mentor for them, we do that based on the applications that we've received. Once the matching has been made, then if there's a partner organization involved, then we have an orientation with that partner organization and our contact person there. So everybody's on the same track and everybody knows who's working with who and what the expectations are. Very clearly, most of the appeal, I think, for the young people in our program is what they say to their mental state is confidential. We don't need to know what they're talking about unless there's a cause for concern or an incident that's happened that has to be reported. We've got a huge stack of policies and procedures and safeguarding in place so that everyone feels safe and secure. So otherwise, what the mentor and mentee talk about, it stays between them. There is a requirement for the mentor to log onto our system every week to indicate that they've met. So actually the monitoring of the program is essential. Otherwise, how do we know if they're meeting? How do we know if they're making any progress? I'm going to just touch very quickly. I see I've already gone over time. So very quickly, what I want to say is, while the mentor and the mentee are in their 9 months of regular meetings, we also add in workshops. So we'll offer them a workshop on budgeting. We'll bring in an expert to talk about that, or any other need that has been identified by a mentor or mentee, then we'll offer it to everybody. But there are 10 domain areas that we focus on, and we call it individual transition planning. There are 4 meetings between the mentor and the mentee and our staff, which we call a transition specialist. Will host this. So there are 4 ITP meetings throughout the 9 months. The first ITP meeting happens between months 1 and 3, at about 6 weeks of the match being made. And that's where the young person is helped to understand what their context is. So for example, I want to be a professional footballer. I want to be a doctor. Okay, let's look at your context. What are your grades? How often do you train? Are you fit? Are you playing in a local team? That's sort of roughly it. Then stage 2, between months 3 and 6, exploring options. And they're helped to explore the options. Again, it's a meeting with mentor, mentee, and our transition specialist. Stage 3, between months 6 and 9, there's some goal setting. The young person then will set some goals for themselves. And then stage 4, review and revise. And all of those 4 ITP meetings and those 4 different sessions will take place in the areas of education and learning, sport and recreation, work and money, home and family, community and citizenship, cognitive health, physical health, emotional health, social health, and identity health. And we have an ITP, an individual transition plan booklet with all the information, conversation starters, and all the tools and tactics and strategies associated with those domains and those 4 ITP meetings and planning around them. Also, our transition specialists offer interventions ad hoc when needed. After the 9 months, there's a graduation, and both are invited to sign up again, but with different people, so the young person can extend their networks. We've had mentees come through our program. We've had 6 or 7 mentors, and they want to know when their next one's coming. I think I better stop. I've gone over a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle, for this very inspiring and very motivating keynote. I am personally very amazed how systematic and formal mentoring systems programs can be. I saw some questions have been raised by participants, but we'll come back to this after the panel discussion session during the Q&A. So now I would like to move on to our next speaker and present Wendy Gillett. Wendy joined the Blue Earth Foundation as the CEO in January 2013 and went on to become a strategic advisor for the boards in late 2018. She has had a diverse career working across education, health, community services, and sports and recreation. However, the themes across all settings have been to deliver system change and improve outcomes. She has won sector awards for her work in sports and recreation and industry awards in the community services. She is a strong advocate for women and girls in all spheres of life and is passionate about the transformative power of sport, recreation, and physical activity. She is also a board member of the Kids Thrive, an art-based social change organization, a founding member of the Women's International Stone Alliance, and also TAFISA Special Advisor for Oceania. Okay, Wendy, now the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Stacey, and thanks also to Michelle. It was really interesting, and I admire the decision to focus on mentoring because it's really clear the depth of development that has happened and that the intensive focus on it is obviously delivering really high-level outcomes. So I read, of course, a little bit about Say Yes, but hearing you speak about it, I think filled out the picture much more and gave me a much greater understanding. So thank you for that. And it's a great pleasure to be here. And Catherine, thanks for your welcome as well. It's great to see some faces on the screen, some people from the TAFISA network, and quite astounding the number of people and the number of countries we have in this online room. And yes, it's a shame that we're so distant, but still good to be able to be together. Gaitan has thankfully offered to share my slides with you today because technology and talking are not great partners for me. So the half the sky, Mao Zedong actually said this is part of the Cultural Revolution. Women can hold up half the sky. We are, of course, half the population. And so it's no great achievement to hold up half the sky. It was part of encouraging women into the workforce. And of course, that was quite successful. But the aspirational goal of gender equality is yet to be achieved in really any countries around the world, although we've made great progress. But in addition to our population numbers, of course, the contribution that women make to unpaid work is substantial. And depending on where you sit around the world, so the unpaid contribution that women make is between 3 and 8 times their male counterparts. And of course, in our current pandemic environment, that's been exacerbated even more. So women have taken on even more. Thanks, Gaitan. The theme this year Sorry, next, yes. The theme this year, and Catherine mentioned it, gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. We've made great gains in sport and in the rest of the world, and it's fantastic to see. Equal pay has been a work in progress across all industries. Tennis was one of the leading lights with the last Grand Slam, Wimbledon, achieving equal pay. I think it was back in 2007. But there are still sports working hard at that. This week, I think the Welsh football team agreed finally to equal pay for their players, but not for another 4 years. So it's an ongoing fight. Of course, gender equality is not just about pay. We also want women to have safe environments. And I noticed when, Michelle, you were talking about the importance of safety within a mentoring relationship. In sport, we've seen, unfortunately, continued high-profile cases of sexual harassment, sexual assault, sexual abuse. And so we still have so much work to do to actually create safe spaces in which women and girls can prosper. But the joys are, there have been fantastic gains. And the images on this slide, professional athletes, women signing autographs of young women, is certainly not something I saw when I was a girl. And women, as we now have women elite coaches and CEOs. And I think there's a really powerful message that if you can see it, you can be it. It's really clear to aspire to something that exists. It takes a lot more to try and see it yourself for the first time. Next, please. When we're actually looking at sport, there are all sorts of models that exist within a mentoring framework. So certainly there's informal and formal models, the very structured and detailed model that Michelle went through, but also lots of other models. And I want to talk to you today just about some of the programs that we've had around the world in TAFISA. And some of the themes that I think have contributed to the success of those programs. One of the really important ones is if we're talking about systemic change and wanting to create gender equality, we need champions. Today, when Catherine was speaking and speaking on behalf of the Board of Directors, there was also a statement from the President. At the very top of organisations, the CEO, the Board of Directors, the leadership team need to be very clear and upfront about their support for women's leadership programs, for the valuing and recognising the contribution that women make and supporting them to be able to do that. And of course, mentors. It's interesting when we think about the skills that we need of mentors, and I think that's such an important step to identify and link up the needs and aspirations of mentees and mentors. And in one of our programs recently, a women's leadership program, there was a number of mentors that had been identified. They were male mentors. And through the course of the program, the women actually decided that for the issues that they were grappling with, they actually wanted mentors that were the same sex, that would understand. And that's not to say there isn't a place for male mentors. I think there absolutely is. But it's not always appropriate for women, and especially overcoming gender-based issues, to feel comfortable to actually talk with that about a male mentor. So it's part of that selection process. A lot of the mentor programs that we have been running in TAFISA also have a peer support program. So learning from your mentor, obviously learning from mentees, and that two-way flow is critical, but also peer support, so learning from each other. When I actually looked at the list of participants and heard how many countries we have, there's just a little part of me that wish we had a day instead of a few hours to do this, because I have no doubt the expertise in this online room is extraordinary. And I would really encourage you, if you are involved in mentoring programs, to share some of that information in the chat. And certainly when we get to the Q&A, I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts and ideas and what's worked for you. The other important aspect is allies. And when I look at the participants, it's great to see the diversity of faces we have. When we're talking about International Women's Day and women in leadership, it's great to have male allies by our side, men who will stand up and actively discuss the importance of gender equality, and also men who will stand back and allow women to step forward, to take the floor, to make sure their voices are heard. We're in this together, and really, if we want to achieve the change, this is only something that can be done working in partnership. Next, please, Gaetan. The first program that I want to talk to you about is a program, the Women's Leadership in Sport for All in Africa. It was about training the next generation of leaders. It was funded in partnership with UNESCO, so UNESCO, TAFISA, and the African Union of Sports Council in Region 5. It's important always to have a champion, as I said, and the CEO of African Union Sports Council has been instrumental in supporting this program. Stanley Matoya continues to espouse the benefits of this program. It was modelled on a ripple effect, and as much as possible, we try and do that, train the trainer model. Women coming in, gaining knowledge and experience in sport for all, in gender equality, in mentoring. And once they have developed that expertise, then using that and sharing that with other women in their homelands so that they can strengthen and build smaller local support groups where women have the ability to assist each other. One of the outcomes of this program, next slide please, is the Female Leaders of Tomorrow program. Recognising that the program in Africa had such great gains, there were two things to do. One is continue it, and two is expand it. And so what happened was the expansion of the program. 14 countries, and I'm going to try and remember them all. So it was, now I'm going to forget already, it was Angola, Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. I hope that was 10. No, that was 6. And then the 4 in Europe. So we had France, Germany, Slovenia, and Portugal. Fantastic to have so many countries involved and really recognising the sharing. So each of us have the opportunity in that environment to share with another peer, as well as drawing on a mentor. 20 mentees, 11 mentors, so each mentor working with 2 mentees, 4 partner organisations. So TAFISA, African Union Sports Council, the European Network of Sports Educators, and the Olympic Council of Slovenia. So lots of layers, mentors, mentees, different organisations, lots of different countries. And that collaboration and partnership that Catherine talked about, critical. And what's happening here is they're all working together to really create a world of change. Next slide, please. So the model is the mentee from one of the AFIs. So there's the opportunity for peer support between the mentees. the support from the mentor. Within the program, there are projects that are worked on, sometimes as a group and sometimes individually. If you're working individually, you can draw support from both your other mentee and your mentor. And of course, the learning opportunities that exist go not only within each of these groups, but across the whole program. So people can share and gain learning across the globe. It's a very powerful program, and we're going to hear more from some of those people. Some of the programs, and I'm just going to really quickly talk about it because it's much more powerful to actually hear it from the individuals. But looking to challenge gender stereotyping and what it actually means, having inspiring role models for both men and women. Challenging hegemonic masculinity, so actually the legitimacy of male power in organisations. Also looking at creating safe places for women and girls. And another one, using Sport for All to really create equal opportunity in all areas. So some huge projects that really are going to make an enormous impact. This year at the TAFISA Congress in June, those projects will be discussed in detail. So I would really encourage, if you're able to attend that Congress in Slovenia, I think it will be amazing. The next program is a very recent program, and it's one that we just started in Oceania. In Fiji, this was also a partnership program with UNESCO. The champion and the local driver was the Fiji National Sports Council. Without them, it wouldn't have been possible. So their role was both identifying mentees and mentors. And we had 35 people from Fiji and another 12 from the Solomon Islands. So it was going to be a face-to-face, but in this world of pandemics, we know that we need to be flexible and change our delivery. Through that program, so we had 2 days of training, not quite as intensive as the Say Yes mentoring program, but it was certainly a good start. And the program will go over the next 12 months. So the purpose of the 2 days was, one, to bring people together, to share the expertise in the room, as well as having presenters come in and talk about women's leadership, so gender equality, sport for all, but also to focus on projects. What will make the difference on the ground? What projects are people interested in pursuing? And then forming project teams that will work with mentors over the next 12 months to make that difference. Mentors themselves also can do with support. And so this program will be linking up those mentors with other Sport for All leaders. So drawing in that international expertise. And as someone who has mentored, I think we can all say mentors don't necessarily have all the answers. It's very much a guiding and support role, and helping people problem solve and think through, but not providing the answers, because we certainly don't have them all. It's about us all developing skills in that problem solving. Thanks, Gaetan. This next program, DOSB, I always like to try and explain what acronyms mean when they're like that. This, however, is German, so I just going to leave that one well alone and say it's basically the umbrella organisation for all sports in Germany. The organisation is actually the biggest citizen movement in Germany. And in terms of size, they have more members than Australia has population. So there are 27 million members. We have about 25 million people in all of Australia. So it certainly seems like an enormous organisation to me. And great to see an organisation that size having run a mentoring program since 2012. The motto of this program, I love. And I love it for each of us here today. I love it for International Women's Day. I love it in terms of gender equality and in terms of mentoring. And Michelle, I love the statement, do good better. When you actually said that, I thought, wow, combining that and this, do good better, and if not us, who? And if not now, when? It's just such a beautiful combination for each of us to take responsibility and take action. Because when we think we've got, I think, Catherine, you said 60 countries and about 180 people. And certainly when I looked at the registration list, it's not just 180 people, it's 180 really powerful, passionate people, clearly because you're here, and what an enormous difference we can make by taking action when we actually leave this forum. This shouldn't just be an hour and a half of International Women's Day. This is about absolutely doing good better. If not us, who? If not now, when? And I think it is such an important message. This mentoring program that's been operational since 2012, it's basically taking athletes, so at the end of their athletic career, moving into the next phase, them wanting to become administrators, and who better to support them in that role than existing leaders and administrators. So it is people within that enormous Bigger Than Australia organisation, identifying how they can support these athletes to become leading administrators in very practical ways, having clear goals and strategies. One of the things that we're learning is through this process, having really clear mentor agreements in place about how often they should meet, about what the expectations are, about how each mentor and mentee will perform. And there's all different sorts of styles, of course, of mentoring, depending where people are in their career path. Some want an enormous amount of guidance and support, whereas others just want to check in and want to be assured that they're on the right road. So it's understanding that in the early stages so that you can be most effective as you support them on their journey. That's just a really quick snapshot of some of the programs that TAFISA run. Gaetan has reminded me that registrations are open for the Congress in Slovenia, so thank you for that reminder. We will, the last slide in a moment, will show you the website address for TAFISA. This is my contact details if you want some more information. And you see the website down the bottom, TAFISA. If you want to go to that website, there is information about the upcoming Congress. And having been to a few, I can thoroughly recommend them for finding out the latest and greatest information in terms of sport for all. They're hugely inspiring. But I'm handing back to you for a moment, Stacey.
Yep, thank you very much, Wendy, for this very great presentation as always, and for sharing the powerful message. I mean, if I had to pick one quote among the many that you shared, it would be definitely do good better. If not us, who? If not now, when? This. I cannot think of anything other powerful than this. I hope all the participants also have enjoyed this amazing presentation. And now I would like to open the floor for 5 minutes of Q&A. I'm going to check the chat functions to see if there's any questions coming in. I mean, the first question can be, is there any measure? I mean, with so many different mentoring programs and systems available, is there any measure where we can assess the quantitative and qualitative the impact out of these various programs that you just shared?
I'll jump in first and then I'll hand over to you, Michelle. I think there are both, certainly. What's important within any program, and I don't think mentoring is any different, is being clear what your goals are in the first place. What is it that you're trying to achieve? And then, yes, we can measure amongst that. If with the women's leadership programs, we're looking clearly to get more women into leadership positions. So defining what they are, having baseline data, and then looking at the change over a period of time. But perhaps more powerful is the quantitative and the stories. And certainly it is life-changing. You know, Michelle talked about the importance of, and I don't think you use this term, but significant other. We all need someone in our life who is looking out for us. And there are many people who don't have that, or certainly don't have it in a career sense. And so having that significant other, that mentor that is really, they've got your back. They're supporting you on the journey. That's, for me, that's as powerful as it gets. It really is.
Michelle, would you like to jump in?
I would, thank you. Thank you for that, Wendy. I totally agree with everything you've said. And thank you for a fabulous presentation. But in response to that question, what we're looking for, because we're working with underserved youth, we're not working, and the majority are young women, but we're working with 14 to 29-year-olds. So with that in mind, and then being adolescents and adolescents who are transitioning, because I think most young people at that, in those age groups are transitioning either out of college or university or school, or leaving home or into work. And so what we're looking for is improvements in independence, which is decision making, and improvements in their well-being and their healthy practices. And so we have quite rigorous monitoring and evaluation. So in addition to the mentor indicating with the weekly logs and those individual transition plan meetings with their transition specialists, there's a great deal of monitoring going on in all those areas that I listed before: education, learning, sport and recreation, etc. But also we're looking at their improvements in independence and well-being. And at the end of the 9 months, we collect information. We have a form for the mentor and the mentee to complete. And if we're working with a partner, we also ask the partner person, key person there to fill in this form too, to show whether there have been, if they've observed anything from a life-changing to none at all change in all those areas, those 10 domains that I talked about, and then also independence and well-being. So yes, we collect stories constantly. We're always talking to the mentors and the mentees, and we see in the ITPs what they're doing. Can I just add, I did have a very quick look through the questions, and I think I'm talking very fast because I'm conscious of time, and I skipped over something earlier. Somebody misunderstood me. I just want to clarify. When I was talking about the mentor applications that we assess, we review when they come in, we are looking for any areas of concerns or red flags, as I called them. And if the mentor application, if that prospective mentor indicates that they have a problem with homosexuality, or they have a problem with teenage pregnancy outside of wedlock, then that for us is a red flag. And that mentor then, if they feel very strongly about those issues, then will not be allowed to mentor in our program. I just wanted to clarify that. I think I was talking too quickly. Somebody misunderstood me there.
Yep, thank you for great answers, and thank you for this clarification. I also wanted to come back to this, but I think everything is now clear to you all participants. I know that we've got a few questions coming in, but I am conscious of time, and I know that we are a little bit running behind. So now, if you allow, I would like to move on to the panel discussion, and then we do have this Q&A session afterwards, so we can come back to more questions to the speakers. So TAFISA is now delighted that we are joined by 3 mentees and a mentor from the European Commission co-funded FLOT project. And with the panel discussion, I would like to again pass the floor back to Wendy and lead us through the session.
Thanks very much, Stacey. There won't be too much more talking from me because now is the time where we actually get to hear from participants, which of course is the most important. And I'm going to start with Irene. Well, I can't see, yes, there you are on my screen. It's good to be on the same page. Irene, if you can start by introducing yourself and talk about perhaps what was your motivation in actually applying for the Females Leaders of Tomorrow program.
Good day, everyone. Am I audible? I'm audible. Good day, everyone. My name is Irene from Botswana. I am an athlete and partly in admin and Botswana Hockey Association. I think the one thing that motivated me to be part of this program is that I'm fortunate enough to be led by a woman in my association. I'm so fortunate to be led by her, and I've seen how she has been patient with me throughout. So with me, I wanted to learn more so that I can go and do more with the guidance and the patience she has had in me throughout while I was since I've joined the sport.
That's great. And so what's been your experience of the program? Has there been any surprises, anything unexpected? Has it been what you expected?
I think it has went beyond my expectations. I've really learned a lot I think the most challenging thing about this program is that we had to do everything virtually, especially on the fact that COVID really disturbed a whole lot of things that we had planned on doing. But the CLC program really opened my eyes because the programs or the topics that we touched are the things that we need to learn as administrators. Issues of leadership, issues of marketing our players. We don't really do much on that. So I think I've learned a lot more than I expected to learn. I've learned a lot from the different projects that we are doing. I've really learned a lot, and I feel like a lot of people need to go through this to upgrade themselves and to really know what is really happening in sports across the world.
So if you had to summarize, and this is a tough question, but if you had to summarize the one or two things that you will do differently because of your participation in this program, what would it be?
So with my project is just based on women participation in sports. From my understanding and the way I've been looking at things locally and across the world, I realized that the participation of women is really not improving. There may be instances where it's improving, but it's degrading. In leadership, from athletes from a younger age, we see we see a lot of women leaving sports. So with the project that I'm doing, it was based on women participation. So from here, I want to join hands, like Michelle was saying, I want to form partnership with the local teams. My association, the WASBO is Women and Sport Botswana, BNSC maybe, and see if you can develop programs from the information that I've gathered to see if there are ways that we can work together and see and empower these young girls in sports so that we can try and retain them into sports, because we are losing gems each day in out. We are failing to retain these young girls. So if you cannot retain them from the early ages, it's going to be difficult to see more women in leadership or in administration. So I think from here, we need to go and sit down with relevant stakeholders so that we can sit down and discuss a way forward, what we can do to actually retain female athletes across all sports code in Botswana. Maybe we can just use this across the world, and then we can just have a rising number of female athletes.
That's fantastic, and I think the your final statement about using it across the world, that the issues that you're facing in Botswana are the same issues that we're all facing around the world. So yes, absolutely, learning from each other. I think that's definitely one of the great powers of this program. Thank you, Irene. Carol, I'm going to ask you the same question. Perhaps if you can start with introducing yourself and what motivated you to apply for the FLOT program.
Good day, everyone. My name is Carol Chipupu, and I'm currently working for Zambia Judo Association as the Administrative Programs and Communications Officer. Okay, so I joined sports leadership, I think in 2016, just after I graduated from university. I was volunteering at least for 4 years before I was employed. What motivated me to apply for the FLOT project was the fact that I had no one to mentor me, like in the sports sectors. I didn't have any female to look up to, except one who was my first mentor before she passed on, Madam Matilda Mayor, so rest in peace. That was my first mentor. So before that, I really didn't have anyone to look up to in sports leadership. So till that opportunity came, and Madam Katongo, the one who's my current mentor now, actually asked me and encouraged me to apply for the project. And I did apply, and the benefits are so overwhelming. Like, I didn't really imagine that I would be learning things from my fellow mentees, from other mentors, and also from the courses that have been organized by TAFISA for the FLOT project. Like, they've been so enlightening. Like, I can talk about the public relations and marketing strategies that we learned during the CLC. That was very much educative. Apart from that, I've learned a lot from my fellow mentee that I'm working with on our project, which is leadership competencies for the young girls. So we're working with 10 girls from Zambia, then 10 girls from Germany. Just like you were from explaining that the problems that maybe female leaders face in the other countries that are similar. So it's almost the same, like we've tried to compare like what challenges they're facing that side and the challenges that we face here in Zambia. They're quite the same. So our project, we decided that, okay, we're going to do the same project since we have same challenges. So it's going on well, and hopefully by the month end of March, we'll be done with our project and it will be ready to be presented. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. And I think it's absolutely demonstrates there is more that we have in common than we have in difference. And of course, it's always great to value the difference, but it's also great to see what we have in common. And the learning, when you talked about the learning from other mentees, I think that's one of the really powerful aspects of the FLOT program. So if I had to, and you've talked about a lot of different benefits, if you had to sort of pick the one or two key things that you might do differently because of this program, what would be the highlights? What would be the big ticket items that you take away from the program?
The main thing that I'll take away from the program is that I've noticed that almost all the mentees that we are working together like started sports at a tender age, and they were introduced to sports leadership at a tender age while they were still athletes. Unlike in my country where we wait till you retire from active athletes, that's when you start working on being a leader, being an administrator. So I think that's kind of it takes a lot of time for someone to develop leadership competencies, especially for females, because there are a lot of challenges that we face as we grow up. There's some kind of low esteem and everything. So if we start working with young girls, like at a tender age, while they're still active athletes, I think it will develop, leadership skills will develop in them as they grow up. So it will be easy for them to even take up leadership positions that we are failing to take up now, because we have to pass through some phases. We need to learn more before we take up those positions. But for them, if they start like at a tender age to be exposed to leadership qualities and everything, I think they'll be able to take up positions even at their young age, because they are already mentored, like they already have mentors. And like in a situation where we do not have mentors, before this mentorship program, like I didn't enroll in any mentorship program. So this is my first, and I'm very glad that I enrolled in it, but I've learned a lot. Yeah.
I'm very glad that you enrolled in it too, because listening to you both, and I know there's more for Kaija and then Katongo to add, but it's hugely inspiring to hear how you've benefited. And I know through that passion that you both carry, that so many more people will benefit. So it's great to hear. So Kaija, I'm going to ask you the same thing. If you can start off by introducing yourself and what motivated you to participate in the FLOT program.
Yes, so hello also from my side. I'm Kaija, 24 years old, and I'm currently studying sports management at the Sport University in Cologne. And sport has always played a big role in my life. And a key experience for me was a voluntary service for 12 months in South Africa, where I worked for an organization called United Through Sport. That was the time where I first got engaged in the sector sport for development and also in the sport of rugby. And now I'm working or volunteering for an organization called RugbyUnited. And we're using rugby as a tool to get especially refugee girls involved in sport. And we're not only focusing on the sport, but also on the personal development. And that's also my FLOT project, what I'm doing together with Carol. And yeah, as she said, we're trying to develop their leadership skills. And I really think that the sport of rugby is a strong sport to break down stereotypes for women and also to foster self-confidence and leadership skills. And yeah, one thing that motivated me to take part in the project was definitely to get engaged with such a big community of inspirational women. So not only our mentors we can talk to, but also my fellow mentees I can talk to. Because before the project, I was in touch already with some inspirational women in my work environment, but also through my volunteering. But I always kind of felt a bit shy to get in touch with them and ask about a personal meeting to learn from them, because I always felt like, okay, this woman is already so busy, she might not, want to talk to me or whatever. But now with this project, I actually have the chance to talk with very experienced women in the sport of in the field of sport that already made their way, and now I can learn from them. But as I said, also from my fellow mentees.
That's great. Now, I'm going to ask you a question that's actually come up, and I'll have you all reflect on that. For you in this program, what do you think it is? Like, what are the key elements of the program that has meant it has been successful for you?
So yeah, I think what I can say, and also what Irene said and Cara said, it is just also the exchange with other women, and also obviously, women from other countries, also continents, and to realize that we have the same vision, we have the same goals. We want to work for gender equality, we want to play our parts, but then also realizing that we face the same challenges. As Irene said, the challenge of how can we as young women get more young women and girls engaged in sport, and how can we find solutions, to keep these girls in the sport or to keep the woman active. And I think, yeah, just to talk about that, and then obviously also the leadership course, that we actually get skills that we can use to manage our programs. Yeah, I think that are the key points.
No, that's great. And so just for you in summary, what are the 1 or 2 changes that you think on the basis of your participation in this program that professionally you will take forward? What will you do differently because of your participation in FLOT?
Yeah, so from my perspective, I would say I now feel more confident to take over a kind of leadership position also within my own project. I feel more confident to be a role model now for the girls I'm working with, and yeah, feel just equipped with skills, and also this the seminar to get the platform to talk about our experiences. You know, it's just a next step that we can take now and build up our own project and hopefully get more girls and women engaged in sport.
Sounds like a pretty good goal to me. So, and thank you very much to our 3 mentees. I'm now going to actually ask Katongo, who's one of the mentors in the program, so a different perspective, but I'm sure also has many benefits to share with us. So Katongo, what made you want to be a mentor in this program?
Maybe I could just give my little background. My name is Katongo. I'm a physical education and sports lecturer at the University of Zambia, and I'm the current chairperson for NOWSPAR. So it's a national organization for women in sport, physical activity and recreation. And I've been involved in a number of TAFISA programs under the African Union Council Region 5. But I'm particularly very excited about mentoring 2 amazing young ladies who just spoke on this FLOT project. So having been in the industry for over 15 years now as an athlete, administrator, and academic, I really saw it as a great opportunity and a platform for me to share some of my skills, my knowledge, and experiences, the young people that have been involved in sport. Like I explained, I've been involved in sport at different stages. And sometimes in my journey, I felt like I didn't really have anyone holding my hand. So I felt like this was a great opportunity for me to hold somebody's hand in the best way that I could and just walk them through this journey. If they needed to ask for help, questions, if I could have answers for them, I'll be able to give them. Or if I knew somebody who had answers, then I'll direct them to the particular person or organization that will be able to provide those answers for them. So I think that was my great, really source of motivation, my experience at different levels.
And has the program run as you expected? Have you been able to impart your skills and knowledge? Has anything unusual happened in the program?
Yes, actually, it's run better than I expected. Well, of course, COVID happened. I think we would have had greater opportunities for physical contact and interaction with my ladies. But we've been able to have WhatsApp conversations. We've been able to chat via email. We've been able to, we've always created an opportunity for us just to talk to each other. And we've been able to have conversations outside the project. So we'll talk about issues that are not really project related. Sometimes we just find out who's having exams this time. And I think it's been wonderful because we've sort of broken through sport. We've been able to learn a lot more about each other than sport only. So it's been a very wonderful experience for me.
And I think that's a really good point. In all of our roles, we are so much more, and to have a connection which is about where you can bring all your strengths forward and all your having that really contained. So is there anything, you've obviously worked with 2 fantastic mentees and are continuing to do so. Is there anything in particular that they've taught you?
Yes, it was amazing because when I was listening to how they were going on about their projects, you know, one is in rugby, the other one is in judo, two different countries. I mean, Germany and Africa, very extreme in terms of facilities, in terms of technology, but it was amazing how they were able to identify similar challenges that they're having in their sports organization. So it just made me realize that actually the universal language here is sports. And although we were at different levels in terms of our professional career progression, we were able to sort of find something common in terms of challenges. And then we were able to sort of listen to how they would sort out their issues in the organization, Kaya's solutions, Kara's solutions, my solutions, and then we see how we can use the solutions from another place and replicate them in our areas or in our places. So this has really been amazing how using multiple contexts, you can actually replicate and put it to your own context and actually solve a problem based on experiences from another person in a different place with a different culture and a different sport altogether. Yeah.
That's a great summary, and thanks so much, Katongo, both for participating in the FLOT program as a mentor, but also for your contribution today. I know we're probably running a little bit behind, Stacey, but we still have 10 minutes for questions. So I'm not sure if you or Gaetan has been having a look at them and wants to highlight some questions for any of the speakers.
Yep, thank you, Wendy. I know that we are running a bit behind time, but there were a lot of good questions that I would like to actually ask to yourself and Michelle as well. I mean, the first question I see right now is, when it comes to female mentorship, how hard is it to engage mentors, especially women, and keep them engaged in comparison to the other gender?
I'll take that one. So is this specific to mentors or mentees or both? Just women in general in mentoring?
Mentors.
Mentors, okay.
Yes.
So we have a really rigorous recruitment and screening process. We take people through a number of stages before they're allowed, before they're matched with their mentee, because we want to do as best we can. We want to ensure that they're not going to leave their partnership, leave the mentor mentee match halfway through, because for whatever reason. So we try and figure out, we ask them what their lifestyle is like, what their working life is like, what their personal life is like. Are they planning on moving house, changing jobs, going on holiday, all of those things? We want to know if they're going to be around for the next 9 months. And if they've got as I said earlier, so a secure relationship style, someone who's not going to get upset or feel rejected and walk away if things get tough. So we really vet that as much as we possibly can before we match mentors and mentees together. And we try and exclude or encourage people to withdraw before they are matched, so that we can avoid that as much as possible. It's not possible to avoid it entirely, but there are what we call early closures for whatever reason, for any number of reasons, but we work hard to make sure they don't happen ahead of time. And we get mostly, we work with male and female, and the majority of our mentors and mentees are female.
Yep, I've got another question coming in here for you, Wendy, actually this time. Do you think that, this is actually from Jacqueline from the Netherlands. Do you think the mentoring program should be organized within the sports sector, or would it be also a good idea to connect with a more generic mentoring program for women and girls?
Excellent question, Jacqueline. I actually think in a mentoring program, it's about understanding what the mentees are seeking to get out of the program. Looking at the same as we've found through this discussion, that there are similarities across countries. I think there are similarities in gender issues between industries. as well. So yes, the nature of sport has a particular structure, but it is not so different that there aren't comparisons in other industries. And I've been involved in mentoring programs that are actually about supporting women to progress into leadership positions. It's not been about a particular industry. However, the issues that they face and the support that they have needed has been consistent across those various areas. So my view would certainly be it is worth exploring partnerships outside sport. Sport is a microcosm of society, and so there are lots of other areas facing the same issues.
May I jump in
there? Yeah.
I know that wasn't directed to me, but I have quite a bit to say about that. It's
Sure.
You know, we started off working with youth in children's homes, but we very quickly learned that this program works in any setting. It's the young people, the mentees are the ones who define the need in this program. We know what we're measuring. We're looking at changes in independence and well-being. Everyone needs to be improving their independence and well-being. So actually we're not only working with children's homes, we're working with sport and development partners. They're still doing those great programs, are still delivering their great work. We are adding another layer of support to the beneficiaries, and we're bringing in outside people who are the mentors who might be from some great corporate that wants to support that small grassroots organization that's local to them, that they know nothing about. So we're connecting people and companies with small grassroots organizations, as well as providing the mentoring to the individual and then the training to the staff at the organization, so that when the young people come to them with issues, they know they're not going to spill out lots of advice that might be wrong. Wendy said earlier, we don't all have the answers. They're going to learn active listening, perspective sharing. So I think there are benefits. That's my take on it. Benefits for generic mentoring programs in any sector.
Yep, I just have to admit that that was just an excellent answer. And I was just observed with the various stories and the answers that our speakers and the panelists shared, thinking that I could just sit here all day, listening to different stories, coming from different backgrounds from everyone, even joining this webinar, because it's just so engaging to just sit here and listen to everyone. And I really regret that we only had planned this webinar to be for 90 minutes, whereas it should have been for a full day workshop, so that because we have so many passionate participants with engaging stories here with us today. And if the time had allowed, of course, we would have been really keen to find out different mentoring programs and experiences coming from our participants of the webinar today. But since we're exactly on time, and I would like to close down our session and give you a huge thank once again to all our speakers and all participants for your attendance and contributions. And all participants will receive a short questionnaire following the session, and we would really appreciate you taking less than 1 minute to provide feedback and to help us improve our workshops in the future. And of course, the recordings will also be available and shared with everyone in the coming days. To finish with, I would like to ask Mitra Rouhi, our board of directors, joining us from Iran, to give a few closing remarks.
And just before Mitra, you speak, can I ask before we finish that everyone puts on their camera and we'll try and get a photo of all participants on screen. Thanks,
Brilliant.
Mitra, and nice to see you.
Katongo, could you please let us know if the picture is taken?
All good now. You may proceed.
Mitra, please. You're muted now. Let me try to unmute you. Yeah, still can't hear. Can you please try to unmute Mitra Katongo? There we go.
I think it's okay.
Yes.
Do you have my voice? Oh. Hello, everyone. First of all, happy International Women's Day. The workshop was very good. I got more information, and I thank the speakers and panelists who mentioned good point in their speech. We have good experience about this subject in Iran, and I'm sure FLOT project will be successful. As my experiences in Iran, more than 40 years, about the special situation in Iran, I want to add some points too. I'm pleased that during the many years that I have worked with TAFISA, I have witnessed policy making, planning, and implementation of activities within a fair view of women's. It's very, very good point, TAFISA, when I compare with other international federations. Research has shown that although women make up more than 50% of the world's population, their participation in sport is lower than that of men. Equal opportunities in sport are not yet available for girls and women in the world. Despite increasing opportunities for women and girls and their participation in sports activities, it has been shown that managerial opportunities are not provided for them. To solve this problem, one of the 12 key issues of TAFISA Mission 2030 is gender equality. It aims to create equal opportunities for women and girls in all fields. And I think it's a very, very unique, positive point for TAFISA because to concentrate just for the women and try be more than before for this situation for women. The FLOT project, which is being implemented in 2 continents, Europe and Africa, can be very effective, and in the future, we hope that it will be planned and implemented in other continents as well. The question is, what factors affect women's sports in equality? I will mention a few. Cultural, social misconceptions, lack of sports facility and training of sports skills compared to men. Less opportunities at the managerial, refereeing, and pay management levels. Women are afraid of failure and have less power than men. Restriction on family responsibility. You need to find the right solution for each of these obstacles for each country due to culture and social, because the country, each country is different, and we couldn't say just one model for all of the countries around the world. I have some suggestions for the growth of women in sports in this project. Believe in gender equality and the comprehensive national support of different governments and organizations in countries in first and foremost. This is very, very important. Please, all of the ladies, I saw most of them is have a responsibility in their countries. Please try more and more for these points. Identify motivation and remove barriers to women's sports. Creating opportunities and managerial roles for women at all levels, training and holding specialist courses on women's empowerment in the fields of management, coaching, and education. We have good experiences about CLC in Iran. I organized 8 courses in Iran, and in all of the course, I encourage all of the women, the leaders in all of the provinces in Iran. In Iran, we have 32 provinces, and I encourage all of the women attend the CLC, and they have many, many experiences. And after that, I saw very, very different. I encourage all of the women in this panel and other countries, please organize CLC just for the women. It's very, very important. Supporting women's sports programs and activity according to the socio-cultural condition of each country. Supporting new idea for greater participation in activities, attracting sponsors and televising women's sporting events, and creating an international women's sports network that can share their experiences. Finally, thank you to the organizer and participants in the workshop.
Thank you very much, Mitra, for this wonderful closing remarks. Well, this has been a fantastic webinar today, and we hope to see you all at our next events. Thank you once again all for joining us, and we hope to see you all again soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.